Thank you all for joining us. My name's Tarun Rathnam. I work at Google. I spend my time advising B2B companies on ad strategy. But today, I want to talk to you guys about small business, and I'm very fortunate to have a fantastic panel. Folks from Constant Contact, folks from WordStream, and folks from Google who are all very passionate about small business and know a ton. I think if I was to add up the experience sitting next to me here, there's over 100 years there. Without aging any one person, I think maybe I shouldn't have said that. Well, let me do this very quickly. If you'd like to tweet, use that hashtag. Nothing bad, only good comments, please. Thank you. No. Questions are welcome at any point in time. What I'll do is I'm going to seed the panel with kind of leading questions, let them comment, and if you feel like you have a follow-up, just raise your hand. We don't need to wait until the end. This can be conversational. It's a small enough crowd. Sound okay? Great. So, I mean, the whole point of today's discussion is around the future of marketing for small business. We think that there's a ton of opportunity to help them get better about marketing and help them market easier, because a small business owner's life is a little bit different than the corporate marketers, to say the least. So that's the plan. The idea is we discuss. We don't necessarily have all the answers, but we think you might, based on conversation we have here. So that being said, I mean, who really cares at the end of the day, right? I mean, is there enough of a small business audience out there that if we developed new platforms and we developed new products and we educated them on digital marketing strategies, is that a good enough value proposition? How many people think there's more than 100,000 small businesses in the country? Raise your hand if you think that's true. All right, that's pretty much everybody. That's kind of a gimme. Fine, how about 500,000? Still quite a few hands, man. And on the high side, how about 1 million small businesses? Still, some people think that's pretty optimistic. So I'm trying to set you up, and it's not working. Because the actual answer is there's about 5.7 million small businesses in the US alone. And this is old data, by the way. The last census that kind of counted how many exist in the country was from 2010. They've been growing at 13 times the pace of large companies. So for every new large company out there, there are 13 small and medium-sized companies starting in the country. So sizable population, and I gotta say, if you can figure out a way to make digital marketing a convincing and valuable mechanism for them, or make it easier for them to do it, you stand to make a lot of money. So that in itself is a good incentive to have this conversation. Before going to questions and before letting you guys introduce yourselves, I wanted to seed a couple of data points in addition to this. One being that, look, this shouldn't be any surprise that a small business owner isn't exactly waking up in the morning and saying, all right, digital marketing, right? They are a baker, a florist, someone who runs a laundromat, and their day job is to run the business and put food on the table. But it's not like they are completely kind of in a void and not thinking about digital marketing at all. In fact, research shows that a lot of them spend a lot of time using email marketing, social, do a ton of event marketing, offers, coupons, things like that. These are all digital marketing vehicles. In a minute, I'll get to what's missing, but let me just say, Constant Contact, kudos to you guys. You got a pretty high adoption rate on email marketing is because you make it easy for them. So would love to hear you comment on how we can do that in the future with other platforms as well. But the things that are not here are nothing about mobile and nothing about big data. One would argue that big data, you need like a small army to just be able to parse the data and analyze it and then be able to actionalize it in some sort of marketing strategy. So it's definitely not small business friendly. But could it be? Some interesting data points. We actually surveyed small businesses to ask them about mobile and big data, and vast majority said, well, we don't even have mobile optimized sites. But they feel like mobile is a good marketing vehicle, period. So it's not like they're not bought into it, it's more that they can't do it today. And so what can we do to kind of ease that pain for them in the words of Tim Rees, what can we do to reduce friction for them? So we'll talk about that a little bit. And big data, again, majority of them are scared by big data. And I think there's a different way to look at this, which is, A, can we aggregate different sources of big data and use that to make marketing simpler for small business? Or B, can we help them aggregate their own data and use it in a way that is applicable and valuable to them? So there's two different angles to this. And listen, mobile and big data are just, to me, the tip of the iceberg, right? There's CRM, there's analytics, there's loyalty data out there, there's market automation tools that don't get used by small businesses today. The list is pretty long when you think of all the different digital marketing vehicles out there that a small business just isn't applying themselves to, period, which I think is a huge opportunity. So with that, I'll shut up, and I'll let the experts start talking. I'm going to let you guys introduce yourselves. Their names are up here. Jesse is the Chief Analytics Officer at Constant Contact. If he wants to kick us off. Oh, I'm sorry, Tim, you're sitting to the left here, so why don't you introduce yourself first, and then we'll go around this way.
Oh, I get a microphone.
Right at the bottom here. There you go.
There we go. Are we there? Oh, there we go. My name's Tim Rees. I lead Google's mobile business in the Americas. And that's probably the most interesting part of me, so I'll leave it at that.
My name's Jesse Harriet. I'm the Chief Analytics Officer for Constant Contact. And I've been in the analytics field for about 20 years and the internet sector since the late 90s. And I'm excited to share some of the analytical insights from Constant Contact today.
Great. Good morning, I'm Ralph Fulls. I'm CEO of WordStream, and we're right down the block here in the Back Bay, and we help small and medium businesses be successful with paid search. And actually, 10 years ago, I was the president of MyTech, so a long time ago, but I'm really excited to see how big it's become in this great conference, so I'm thrilled to be here.
Good morning, everyone. My name's Jim Gerritsen. I'm the product manager at Constant Contact for all things mobile, across our native applications and for web stuff as well. My background's in software and interface design and cognitive psychology, and I'm really excited to be here this morning.
Hi, I'm Margaret Lawrence. I'm a chief of staff for the SMB organization for the Americas at Google, and have been on the team generally for the last couple of years. Most recently, I ran the agency program, so all of the SMBs that work with agencies and use Google products. But I'm really excited to be here, and the one thing that I wanted to add to your comments about opportunity is also the offline opportunity. I think there's a ton of spend in in newspapers and things like that, and that's typically where the bulk of the spend for SMBs is, and it's something that we're thinking about a lot, how we can transition to some of the online tools.
Well, let's definitely hit on that when we're talking. Kick us off with a simple kind of warm-up question here. By the way, I'm silently giving myself an applause for getting this panel together, because just hearing their diverse expertise is pretty awesome. Thank you for the gratuitous applause. So simple first question, and I'm putting these up here, guys, so you know what we're talking about in case you space out, but don't space out. Lead-in question. What marketing strategies work the best for SMBs today? And any of you are welcome to comment.
Since I have a mic in my hand.
Sure. And you're not shy.
And I'm not shy. I think that this gets to your point about big data, and I don't know that I think once you've seen a small business, you've seen one small business, and it's very hard to make. We've found that it's hard to aggregate data to know exactly what one small business needs. So the small business team at Google serves a huge range of different types of clients, and one of the things that we've tried to do is kind of segregate by business goals and try to understand what each of the clients needs. So I think also historically, and the numbers I believe are, it's like marketing spend for small business I think is around $250 billion. Of that, I think close to 70% is offline. And so I think if you asked most small businesses, they would say that, local newspapers or Yellow Pages, things that people in this room probably don't spend a lot of time thinking about, but I think historically that's what's worked, and it's hard to change.
And the big word there is local, right?
Yeah.
Just because of the nature of their business. And newspapers and Yellow Pages have been the traditional local marketing vehicle. What are the online equivalents there that could and should work for them?
I think the mobile opportunity really is a transition point for small businesses as well as for the marketing industry in general. So when we think about traditional local marketing, it's all about creating a lasso around a DMA or an MSA. With mobile, you have that opportunity. Local has a totally different meaning. You can market to one specific person wherever they are, wherever they happen to be. And because small businesses tend to have transactional marketing goals, like they want a customer, they want somebody in a restaurant, they want you to buy flowers, whatever the case might be, then that local mobile marketing opportunity really helps, is I think one of the things that's going to transition small businesses in effectiveness.
I'll just add one quick thing. I think small businesses really like performance marketing. Okay, so these are entrepreneurial type people that care a lot about their marketing budgets, and the ability to pay for something only when they become a lead or a customer is really attractive to them. So, even broader than mobile, just the whole platform of paid search and targeting and paying for leads. I think I see a big trend with more small businesses willing to give that a try.
So I think there's one big misconception, and I guess we'll get into it in different ways as the conversation goes on, but there's an assumption that small businesses can't wrestle with data, that they don't have time, they don't have, it's just overwhelming. And digital sort of implies using data more effectively to market. I would argue that small businesses have always used data, and by the way, small business is such a hard thing. It's, a business with 100 employees is radically different from, a local restaurant with 10. But that said, I'll use the restaurant as an example. I go to Chesco's in the town where I live, religiously. I love the place, eat the same thing all the time, get the same bottle of wine. Even not counting digital strategies, I now have a table at Chesco's. I'm greeted by name. All of that is data, right? They have been casually collecting the fact that wow, that guy comes a lot. Let's bring him a free appetizer. That kind of stuff happens all over the place all the time. Digital represents the opportunity to do those things at a larger scale, more effectively, more efficiently. It's just getting over the hump of embracing the notion that, yeah, I can do this, and it's worth the investment of my time.
Yeah.
And by the way, to give you an example of the fact that Chesco's is a good example of a place that doesn't just do that, and by the way, I'm not an investor in Chesco's, but if you're in Darien, great. They use iPads on every table with menu items and things you can look up, and the wine list. And if you find a wine that you like, there's a little button on there that says, email me this label. It's a great way to do data capture. It's a great way to demonstrate or communicate a loyalty with the customer. It's a simple little thing that they're plugging into digital capabilities. And that's marketing with a small m, but it's still part of the process.
Yeah, so to build on that, there are a variety of different techniques that work better or worse depending on the vertical for a small business, but a lot of successful entrepreneurs know which pieces work for them, and they're collecting data inherently every day. They're learning and they're adjusting. So you can think of some of the analytics capabilities that I think we're going to be talking about here as just another way to close that feedback loop with your online marketing. Right? You can think of it as that. I feel like the big data opportunity for small business is about having a market research department when you otherwise would not.
Great. Does anyone have a follow-up question from the comments you've heard? Now, again, just raise your hand when you do. We don't have to wait until the end or any such thing. But we're going to probe on all of these things as we keep going here. I do want to ask, though, one of the points you guys brought up were, we talked about mobile a little bit, and You talked about the idea of being hyper-targeted and performance marketing, right? So I get that. I get that, you know, the local targeting element of mobile lets you play on equal footing with a larger company if you're a small business, right? How else, like, is there another opportunity where big data and mobile come in where a small business can play on equal footing with a much larger brand or a much larger, you know, think about buying pizza, right? You have your little shop down the corner and then you have Pizza Hut. And it's a very different paradigm that you're competing with there. So what are the other ways in which a small business could, if not today, in the future, play on equal footing with a large company?
I think mobile itself is a great example of an even playing field, right? And mobile search in particular, just because the tighter you draw that circle around where your small business is doing business, the less leverage the larger competitor has, right? So if you're, you know, Ed's toy store, you're not going to be able to compete with Toys R Us nationally,
right,
but you sure can in your town. Because it isn't as efficient for Toys R Us to target your town the way you can. I shouldn't say it's less efficient, it's just equally efficient for them to do it. So you really aren't at a disadvantage there. And that, as you alluded to, the nature of mobile all by itself is that it is local, that you're taking signals about where people are going, how they're moving, and that's all hugely valuable to small businesses.
So I actually feel like mobile is a really interesting context because it's not even a level playing field. It's canted towards the smaller business. And the reason it's canted towards a smaller business, in particular in social media, is because effective social media communication is largely about people, right? It's about people connecting with people. And it's much easier to connect with a small business where a lot of what you're about is connecting with people, having 10 people in your business and being small, and you're telling a story through social media about your business. It's much easier to connect with people than with a brand or with a message. So the context of mobile is a much better fit for the type of stories and ongoing communication that a small business can tell versus a large one.
Can I just, while you're passing, I think you made a great point, which is what I'm talking about when I said leveling the playing field, I think is the perception of small businesses is that it's canted against them. And I think you're absolutely right. It actually is in their favor. They just generally don't see that.
So one quick comment. I'm a big believer that mobile could be super powerful for these small businesses, but I think it's a future hope. And it's a challenge for kind of us on the panel, for Google, for Constant Contact, WordStream. We have to make it simple for them. Like, it's so easy to say, like, oh, well, Ed's Toy Store could set up a mobile-centric campaign and send the call tracking to the, you know, and the reality is they struggle to do that today, you know. So if we can make it so that they feel empowered to do it, it really has the potential to level that playing field. Can
we keep going with that, Ralph? So literally, this is, thank you for somehow reading into my next question. Yeah, you like that? But the thing is, how, right? So you talked a lot about, in the past, about points of friction in mobile from the perspective of the user, like make it easier for me to like get my information on mobile. I get that. But then it seems like there are point of friction for a small business to use mobile as a marketing channel, right? You saw the data that said, what, 60% of them think it's great, but only 20% of them actually do it. So what's stopping 40% of them from doing it? And if we are all platform developers, how many people here either have some sort of software, platform, or services that offer mobile solutions? Okay, so at least that's actually more hands than I would have expected. So what do you guys need to do differently?
Well, Tarun knows, you know, friction is a big topic for me, and I think getting out of your own way and helping consumers glide toward a transaction is a really important thing. In the same way, as both of you described, it's incumbent upon us in the business to make it easier for marketers and small business marketers to tap into these resources. That said, it's always about ROI, right? So even if it were hard, if it was clear how great the reward was, people would get over the fact that it's hard. So there are two factors to play into. One is making it easier for marketers to make use of these tools, and that's certainly on us. But the other side is, I guess also on us, now that I think of it, is revealing the value of mobile, because it's hard to understand. It's a lot easier when somebody comes in with a page torn out of the local newspaper. I think the leap of faith that small businesses can and should make is that will be revealed. It is happening, I just don't understand how, right? That value equation. I think there's enough data available to realize that this is inevitable, right? Consumers are trading more and more and more behaviors onto their mobile devices. The example I often give is I don't approve anybody's expense report anymore on my computer because it's an in-between kind of activity and it's easy for me to do on my phone. I think that's kind of the leap that has to happen.
A quick little story. We have a really cool free tool that allows anyone with an AdWords account to just run a report card and see how they're doing in search. And it compares them to advertisers, their size, and so forth. Because a lot of time they're like, I don't know how I'm doing. My click-through rate's 1%. Is that good? And that tool's now been run on almost $3 billion of paid search ads. And what's really interesting in that kind of big data is some of the stats. So only 1 in 20 small business accounts have gone and created a mobile version of their ads for all their campaigns. Only 1 in 20. Another shocking stat is like half of them haven't turned conversion tracking on, right? So they don't know how they're doing. So, you know, I just want to stress that it's a great, I view it as an opportunity, not as really a problem. It's a great opportunity to ask ourselves, what are they not getting? How could we simplify? How could we make them feel empowered? How could we really need to do a lot to kind of get them over that hump and engaged in it.
I think those are great points. I'll just add that at Constant Contact, we take a multi-channel perspective. So mobile is certainly key for the future, but there are also other channels that need to be used at the same time. And a true 360 view is about understanding how all those channels work together, because you may download a mobile app, but you may see advertising online somewhere. You may walk into the store. How do you bring all of those touch points together? And I think that's the promise of the future, is having that integrated approach. And so what we're trying to do at Constant Contact is take that multi-channel platform view and help small businesses reach out through different medium.
And just to bring Ralph's point home, I think, you know, we are Google. Everybody's heard of Google. We have a huge team that reaches out to small businesses to try to help them. And you know, caller ID is Google's calling, you know, and people are skeptical. If you're running a business and on the side you're managing the marketing and you've got, you know, employee issues, and I agree that ROI needs to be crystal clear, but even getting mind share, even getting to connect with small businesses is really challenging. So there is something to simplifying the message and simplifying the interface. I think, you know, it's a lot of the products in the online marketing world are built for large businesses that have huge marketing teams, and then retrofitted for small and medium businesses. So I believe there's a huge opportunity with small and medium businesses. There's huge growth potential with mobile and everything, but it's hopefully converting from retrofitting to really focusing on the needs of small businesses. So,
and it's interesting, I feel like that one of the themes is then like messaging and marketing to them around, you know, mobile and why it's good for them, to your point about it being perception versus actually the case. And you're saying it's actually canted towards small business versus away from them, but they just don't know that. And then I heard another kind of roadblock around websites and mobile properties in general. So, you know, solving that problem is still certainly far from being achieved. What after that? Is it a, you know, like a loyalty program type thing? Is it a offers? Is it a real-time advertising? What's the next nugget that needs to be made simpler after we make site development and education simpler for small businesses?
Actually, I feel like one of the big friction points on the horizon is effectively communicating a lot of the data and analytics information that we're going to be able to conclude. So if we're able to say, here's a lot of information that we've collected about the sorts of marketing that you're running, and here it all is, then first of all, the information visualization is going to be a big friction point. And that's going to be something that we have to think very hard about, because for a lot of small businesses, They're interested in online marketing as a way to make their business successful, but it isn't necessarily an area of interest in and of itself, right? So to make sure that we're presenting information in a meaningful way and to make sure that we're presenting it in a clear way is something that we're going to have to be very careful with and very thoughtful about. Otherwise, we're going to increase friction to the point where there's a huge amount of data available. It doesn't seem to provide any direction, and it doesn't appear to be actionable. So we're going to have to be very careful with that.
One thing I think we could help them with is, I'll use a broad term, conversion. Okay? So one thing we found, we spent the last couple years really working on our software and helping them get more leads out of their budget, and they care about it a lot and so forth. And we weren't having the ultimate impact we could have, and we looked at the reason, and the reason was they were struggling with conversion. And that's a broad word to encompass whether it's the website, whether it's landing pages. We found a lot of small businesses send these leads to their home page. It's not specific. Yeah. And when you ask them why, why are you doing that? Or why don't you create specific landing pages? They say, well, my brother-in-law Joe does that for me, and he wasn't available this week. Or, hey, I outsourced the website, and I know how to update the content, but I don't know how to create a form. Yeah. These are the kind of businesses that we're dealing with. So again, we gotta help them with the basics and to get things right and empower them. Yeah.
Great. Jesse, question, I want to start with you and obviously open it up to everybody else, but you talked about the 360 approach at Constant Contact and the kind of multi-platform angle there. Tell us a little bit about the secret sauce that you can, how are you doing this today? What kind of big data are you applying to make Constant Contact's platform better for small business?
Sure. I think when we do analytics at Constant Contact, we're dealing with about 45 billion engagement touch points a year, and we have over 500,000 small business customers. So there's a lot of data just to start with there. And our philosophy is a fact meaning action paradigm. So I usually tell the analytical teams, nobody cares about your data. They care about what they can do with it and what it means for them. So starting with the fact, going to the meaning, leading to the action is the paradigm that we try to follow. So for example, we look at the best time that one might send a particular marketing outreach. That's going to differ if you're a sports store in New York City versus a restaurant in Boise, Idaho. It's going to make a difference. Then on the receiving end of it, looking at your customer base, when do they tend to interact with your marketing outreach? That's going to differ. Some of us open our emails at 7 in the morning. Some of us do it in the evening. It just differs. So marrying those two things in a fact meaning action paradigm is sort of the philosophy that we've taken.
Anybody else want to add or comment on? Go ahead.
The way that we've approached it is really to try to understand what our clients need to accomplish through online marketing. And so, the restaurant in Tim's town is going to have very different needs than the guy who's selling urns from his home in Maine. And so, and mobile plays in really differently between those two types of companies. So we're trying to align, our suite of offerings in the online marketing space to specific business goals of our clients, and have found that that's been helpful. And then we're hoping to grow some of the analytics to increase our ability to help them.
What about collecting their own analytics? You talked about the cool example of iPad in front of you at a restaurant, and they're telling you their preference. I like this wine, email me about it. Is there a platform today, or can we create one, to aggregate their own kind of big data, which, it's not going to be big data, but basically behavior data about their audience or whatever it might be that can inform their marketing strategy? What needs to happen for something like that to be available to small business? Or am I just ignorant and does that exist already?
No, I think that's a great question. The answer is no. I don't think it exists in the full way that we would want it to. But I think it starts with having some sort of integrated platform, having the ability to see across campaign types, see across engagement touches, and having the data you know, that you see a full picture, that 360 picture of the customer interaction. So I think it's also a struggle for small businesses just to work with data. I mean, it can be very overwhelming. It can be something that's intimidating. And so at Constant Contact, we also try to make it behind the scenes and somewhat, you know, I don't want to say invisible, but they shouldn't really have to care. You know, it's more about the outcome of what they're trying to achieve, like you mentioned. And so putting suggestions in the product, giving them insight right when they need it, those types of things are, I think, also help.
We talk a lot about lack of education being an issue here, which is just no awareness around maybe I should be thinking about mobile. Maybe I should actually adjust settings and manage actively my marketing online, not, to your point, once a year take out an ad in a newspaper, right? Ralph, you guys have done a lot of research around where the gaps are in expertise. Can you share a little bit about where you think and everybody here, what you think the gaps are in expertise today? And then let's also talk about what can we do to educate them and what can we do to cover those gaps, right?
You know, I guess if I had a simple theme that keeps coming up with some of these questions is we have to help small businesses get the basics right. So that's what I would do. If I could do anything, or I was the CEO of Google for a day or something, you know, that would be my theme. You know, there's a lot of great capability that's already there. It's super powerful. Like, let's drive adoption, okay? One little thing we do that I think is great is, you know, we've created something called PPCU, PPC University. And we have PPC 101 and PPC 102 and PPC Advanced or something like that. And we just try to create and write a lot of content that's geared towards that audience and helps them feel empowered and explain some of these more complicated things. Mm-hmm. And we do it for free, and if they become a customer, great. If they don't, we just help educate them, that's fine too. That's one thing we do.
Along those lines, we've found that just having a human being talking to a small business and walking through online marketing and you know, for Google, our product, has been hugely helpful, and small businesses need it. If you're a good contractor, that does not make you a good, you know, marketing online. So there has to be some education, and I think there are obviously scalable ways to do that through videos. But we've found that the initial sort of walking somebody through, being able to answer questions, has been extremely helpful, and as a result, are really trying to work with partners and encouraging small businesses to find agencies and partners like Ralph's firm to help them. And I think if you're a small business owner, you get calls from a lot of people and you don't know who's who, and so it's very hard to sift through who's actually going to be helpful. And that is one challenge that we've found. So we're trying to think about how to help there.
So as far as gaps in expertise go, there's a historical gap in expertise that at Constant Contact we've been talking about, and we've been working on with customers for many years, which is figuring out the right thing to say and actually putting words to paper in a lot of cases, right? Figuring out what content is going to be effective, how long it should be, a lot of stats around that. But I feel like with mobile open rates, they're going to pass 50%, right? I think Litmus reported 47% or so just a month or two ago. Really, the definition of content is changing, and that's also working in a small business's favor, because the amount that you need and the type of content that you need to share has changed. And it's smaller in the sense that it's fewer words, but you can be just as effective or more effective with an image, with video, with tweet length, with something like that. So you can type less, right? But you can say a lot more now with this changing definition of content. And I think that probably means that that gap in expertise that's historically existed is going to become a lot less important. As technology changes, it becomes much easier and much more natural to communicate with people in this smaller form.
And I would just add also that really educating small businesses, like has been said before, has been a cornerstone of Constant Contact strategy. We invest heavily in personal coaches that can walk the small businesses through how do they accomplish the goals that they want to with marketing. But I think another gap is that analytical gap in expertise, that small businesses don't have the time to just, usually analyze their customers in depth. So companies like ours who service the small businesses have to make that kind of invisible to them, but then give them the expertise, the results that they need based on data, based on analyzing what works, based on comparing it to their peers.
Great. So I'm going to move us to what I think is the toughest question of the day, the million-dollar question, really. And you gave us a great lead-in with the example of the restaurant and knowing your seat and knowing your wine preference and all of that. What is, for each of you, a cool use case or an interesting kind of application of big data or mobile or literally any other digital technology to a small business's marketing efforts that is not around today, or at least not popular? It's a hard one, yeah.
Well, there are a couple of things that are not on the map for marketing yet, or at least not in a significant way. One of them is Google Now, which is, if you think about friction, as our founder and CEO has said, Google's really good at answering a question quickly and accurately, but what's less friction than that? Anticipating the question you should have asked. So has anybody here had a Google Now experience? Having one right now?
Says I'm 11 minutes away from home.
See? Aren't you glad to know that? For me, in April, my phone rang in my pocket, or buzzed in my pocket, and I honestly thought I was getting a phone call, which is dumb because I was briefed on this. And I took it out, and there's what we call a card. And essentially what my phone was saying to me was, hey, Tim, because you told me it's cool for me to look at this stuff, because everything should be permission-based, I noticed that you put on your calendar that your daughter Allie's flight back from Michigan is today, so I checked the flight and it's on time. And I checked where you are and mapped a route to the airport, and I checked the traffic, and if you're going to be there to pick her up on time, you should really leave now. And there I was, a guy who's in the business, had been briefed on this product, staring at my phone going, whoa. Now, what are the ways that a small business, which will be different based upon what that business is about, what are the ways that a small business could tap into that anticipatory marketing opportunity? The one that just popped in my head is your local tire store saying, hey, now's the time to put on your snow tires. Now's the time to rotate them. Now's the time to change your oil, whatever it is. I'm the perfect target for that. I would never remember to do that stuff. And, even your doctor reminding you to get a flu shot, or what are all the things that you could make people's lives easier by anticipating things for them? I'll throw that out as one future case.
I think that's great.
I'll just add to that, which I think the theme of predictive analytics, I think, is the future use case. So how are you able to use things like Bayesian statistics to then anticipate what's the next best action somebody should take based on the goal that they want to have? Whether it's the business that if you're the business and you want to get them to come to your restaurant on Saturday, or if you're the tire shop and you want to get them to change and rotate their tires. But using big data to, whether it's location-based, preference-based, transaction-based, to then predict what is the next best action that's going to help you on the goal that you have as a consumer and a business together.
Jesse, I just thought of just thinking about think about like every year you have your anniversary and you go out to dinner with your spouse or something like that, and you typically go to the same restaurant and it becomes a tradition. What if that restaurant had that data and was able to say, listen, a month in advance, email you saying, hey, we've got your table, we've got the corner one, let us know if you still want it or something else. I mean, I would love that restaurant for the rest of my life, right? So that creates a kind of loyalty that is just doesn't exist today. And it's so easy to do if you have the data and it's all automated and bang, right? So I think that's a good application of what you were saying. Yeah, I got to do that.
Yeah, I get excited by some of the basics. So we have we have all kinds of small business customers. They sell all kinds of things. We have a customer that sells like Amish gazebos, okay? The most unique, all kinds of things. I get excited by a small business like the story that this gentleman told, who sets up a couple campaigns, and maybe he's driving phone calls, and he gets it working. You know, and he's excited about it, and now he has 10 leads. And the most exciting thing is when the light bulb goes off that, hey, I was spending $1,000 and I'm getting 10 leads, and it's working. That I could spend $2,000 and get 20 leads. You know, that's really exciting when these businesses, you know, stitch together some basic campaigns, drive customers, get it to work, realize that it's performance marketing, and that's really exciting for me.
Yeah, I also get excited by some of these simpler things. We've talked about friction. We've talked about a little bit definition of content and using analytics to drive actions. And I feel like we're getting to the point where it'd be possible to say you have 3 people on your Facebook page, and you have 1 person on Twitter, and the click-through rate on your latest email campaign all indicate that people want you to run the same event this year that you ran last year. You don't have to do anything about that now, but what you could do is just take a picture of a calendar and post, we're thinking about doing this event, what do you guys think? And if you see that message appear, you take the picture, you type it out, you send it, and the future use case that I think is a little bit profound here is you just did your marketing for the day in 30 seconds. Not 30 minutes, not an hour, you did it in seconds, because we're able to optimize so many of the decisions that you need to make that we can predict what will be successful. We can be very actionable and direct about what you should do to make it happen.
For me, I think getting to the place where small businesses are not just found, you know, I think many are using search, but that are actually preferred, which would mean that small businesses are moving a lot of their marketing efforts online, is sort of where I get excited about, and it's tied back to pretty much everything everyone has said. But it's a massive shift, and so, but I think very doable, and I think small businesses are well positioned. Where there needs to be adjustments is around the usability, the education, and all of that. So
great. Last couple of questions. We'll have a few minutes for questions from the crowd as well. But you know, we've talked a lot about the future that can be and some really interesting ideas here. What's practical? Like, what does a small business need to go do next? Or what do the folks in the audience as marketers targeting small businesses, what's the next thing to go do?
I think this is hard because everybody's at a different place, but it's true. Like when you get a small business to actually see the value of launching a few ads online and see the leads come in, it's amazing. And people become a little obsessed too. You know, they're like, they actually do want to check and be involved and understand everything about it, because you can actually finally know who's coming in as a result of the money you're spending. So that is, I think, for the vast majority, the first step and also the next step.
Yeah.
But I think it varies. There's a whole number of steps that different teams can take.
Yeah, agreed that broadly it's about measurement. So inevitably there are some activities that a business is performing today that are not really being measured, and they're very hard to tell whether they're working or not. You can have a sense of whether or not they're working, but it's tough to really say for certain. So to the extent that you can look at some of the activities being performed today, see if there's a way, see if you can turn on tracking in your search account. You can start to understand what works and what doesn't. And we know that that's where we're going in the broad sense, because that's the first step to being able to make smart return on time investment decisions. But there's a lot you can do right now just to start to understand what's working and what isn't.
And I would just add, in terms of where should small businesses focus next, I think the theme to me is try new things. because there's some of that basic education gap in many small businesses in terms of what works and what doesn't, just trying new things. It's not very expensive to try a lot of these digital media options to get new customers and acquire. So experiment, try, and learn, I think, is the theme for small businesses to focus.
Great. Well, I have one last question for the panel, and then we'll open it up to any questions you might have. Slightly on a different theme, which is, again, we're a lot of marketers in the room, some of them today inspired to go create solutions for small businesses. How do we monetize that? What's the best business model for a marketing solution targeted at a small business?
Yes, I am biased, but in the spirit of Wayne Gretzky thinking and skating where the puck is going, it's all about mobile. The consumers have already spoken. This is the platform they are moving toward. And for people who serve small businesses, to help them learn how to make the most out of the fastest growing platform, I think is going to be the best use of time and effort.
And is it a freemium situation? Is that the only way you're going to get small business to kind of come? Or can you charge them real money for these kinds of products?
Well, my investors want me to charge real money for the products. That's what they tell me at the board meeting. I think a couple quick thoughts. I think this big theme around free tools and freemium is huge. Give them a little taste of what they could do. Give them a full-featured trial that allows them to do those kind of things. And then the last thing I'll add is we have a core value around transparency. I think that's really important to small businesses. So transparency in your pricing, easy to understand, know what you're getting, no surprises, no big negotiations. The price is the price. We've found that those kind of things work really well with small businesses.
One piece I'll add to that is there's research that shows that small businesses want a one-stop shop. If they can have all of their marketing problems solved in one place that they trust and they can build on, they're more likely to invest in that than doing email in one place and social another and search in a third and everything. Consolidation helps for small business, which I think is important as we think about. Go ahead.
Yeah, just to build on that, we mentioned a little bit earlier, so for consolidating, that starts to provide the freedom to experiment, right? That provides the ability to try things that you haven't tried before if you have this consolidated approach. And that has a lot of power, and it kind of sets up the incentive correctly, both for the person providing the solution or the company providing the solution, and for the business who's trying to achieve great results.
And I want to thank all of our panelists and you guys for being a great crowd. Go out there and make products for small businesses. Thank you.